Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So quite a lot of you have been asking to me what I think about each and every single one of these champions in the Reunion Crystal, and obviously which are the better choices to pick from the selector. Therefore, I'll kind of break down each and every single one of them, the things that I like, the things that they are good at in general, and what they're meant for, and obviously also who I believe are best picks based on primarily, as many of you obviously know, competitive play, which largely involves battlegrounds and alliance war. So, first things first, let's go over each champion and kind of what they represent in the game and how good or bad they are. Hulk's actually a champion that I absolutely like. I love using him, and he's very, very fun. That's the truth of it. He's also very good for some specific bosses and quests, but he has very little competitive value. Number one, it is connected with the way scoring works in Battlegrounds, and it is hard to finish with high health with Hulk unless you are timing out everything perfectly. The fact that he is slightly RNG reliant on whether he stuns or doesn't on his level 1, and obviously he's quite AI relevant as well, whether they do attack in you and how easy it is to ramp him up. So ultimately, Hulk is, for most part, an amazing questing champion, great nuke for specific purposes, but it's just that. It's largely questing. And as far as I'm concerned, and I'm very open about it, there are tons and tons of champions that are really good at questing, and therefore I pretty much never expressively invest resources in champions that do one thing when other champions do much more. And if Hulk's good for questing and other champions are good for questing and many other things, then I'm going to go with those. Ultimately, though, he's very cool. The one redeeming competitive aspect of Hulk is his health pool. He has the second biggest health pool in the game, and therefore, if you do absolutely love Hulk and do want to go for him and take him to rank 3, he will be a chunky piece of meat defender that can at times stall out champions, but then again, with a ton of amazing skill champions, he can get nuked, his immortality can get bypassed, and he's not the greatest defender either, but he has some defensive uses. Moving on, Misty Knight. Misty Knight is a champion that I actually really, again, like myself, initially I was using her as a Penny Parker counter. Obviously now we have much better options in, Hulkling and Galen and whatnot. But she did Penny Parker fight quite well. Not that Penny Parker is the biggest threat on defense anymore. The biggest shame about Penny Parker... Oh, right, I didn't mention Awakening ability. Hulk's perfectly fine unawakened, just so you know. I mean, it's nice to have, but it doesn't serve much of a reliable purpose. 95 fights out of 100, you will not notice the Awakening ability much. Misty Knight has one of the worst Awakened abilities that we have seen in recent years in the game. Honestly, another champion that's perfectly fine unawakened. Purpose for Misty Knight is that if she's big and tanky enough, she can be quite nasty defender for Alliance War and for Battlegrounds, where she starts shrugging off debuffs and starts wading, as well as can have her special attacks go unblockable. And obviously, when you do get caught, if she does have her crits on, it will hurt. The one big thing I always said about Misty Knight, it seems like there's an absolutely missed opportunity to add in some sort of attack modifier, because she does have a precision in her kit, and then on top of it all, she also has guaranteed critical hits, which seems like just an absolute waste. This should have been a Fury buff, and if it was a Fury buff per charge, she would have been an amazing champion. As it stands, she's alright. She's solid. She's one of those champions that interacts very well with attack modifiers, so any metas or any nodes that do give extra attack, Misty Knights can do great in, as well as obviously boost and masteries. But she's not necessarily recoil friendly, and recoils are not something we typically run in Battlegrounds either. But there have been some very, very cool things coming out from rank 3 Misty Knight videos. Again, I wouldn't personally be overzealous in rushing into invest in Misty Knight when we do have a plethora of more viable and competitive champions. But for those of you who do like the playstyle and a lot of yellow numbers, she can be kind of cool. And again, she does have some defensive purpose. Then Magneto House of X, a champion that pretty much does need to be awakened if you're actually going to use him. Obviously, Magneto House Vex is a champion that primarily is used for his pre-fight abilities, and that is tremendously helpful. However, you can achieve 90% of Magneto House Vex value by using a 6-star or 5-star. The champion in itself, he's not bad. Obviously, he's not as capable as Red Magneto offensively for most part, but he will do the job just fine. He still has magnetism, reducing opponent's ability accuracy, and in addition to that, their combat power rate. But he would need to be awakened. If he is awakened, there is an argument for potentially taking him to rank 2, in my opinion, because bleed and armor break debuffs gain duration based on how much bonus special damage he's gaining from prowess effects, up to 150%, which means armor breaks take longer and bleed's much more potent. You can use him unawakened, but it is fairly significant help for him. Other than that, obviously, little to no defensive use in general, and yeah, a champion that I'm kind of baffled that Kabam made it a 7-star because, again, 95% of his use in-game is pre-fights, and you don't need the 7-star for that. Moving on, now we have Punisher 2099, one of the 2 best competitive picks, in my opinion. One of the best the best dual purpose champion, I would say, in the game, in this selector, because his power control is amazing. Once you reduce opponent's defensive combat power rate by 90%, obviously they will hardly get any specials, and that enables you to do a ton of fights where you wouldn't necessarily think that he can do, just by preventing opponents from throwing special attacks. He can take on Gallants, he can take on any champions where trouble starts after the special attacks, or if those special attacks are unblockable, or if there's a lot of block damage involved. He will be also quite solid for the next couple of metas because he doesn't particularly rely on energy attacks, and he doesn't have an energy dot that he would absolutely need to disperse, as well as once his attack boost comes into play, it interacts quite nicely with the guaranteed crits from Crit Me With Your Best Shot meta. And obviously, any metas where you do need to prevent opponents from, any metas where it is painful to take specials and block due to some sort of pierce effects or due to increased furies and stuff like that, he can also be an absolutely nasty defender. So I do think he's a very, very solid pick. Overall, I, however, do value Man-Thing to be the best overall pick, especially for now, considering that Man-Thing is a new tactic champion. Man-Thing will be a new tactic defender. So in the upcoming Alliance War seasons, obviously we will see Man-Thing in Alliance War defense. Man-Thing is notoriously amazing, Crit Me With Your Best Shot meta defender, and also an extremely chunky mystic defender in general. And, it kind of a counterpart to Sassy. Obviously, Sassy gained a lot more popularity because he existed as 7-star much more earlier, but prior to that, we kind of looked at them interchangeably in between Man-Thing and Sassy. So, Man-Thing is the choice that I will be making in the selector. Again, primarily focusing on Alliance War and Battlegrounds content. And I understand if not everybody views the game differently, and I do not hide the things that I value the most in the game. And exclusively, pretty much, because I know for a fact he's a good Crit Me With Your Best Shot meta defender. That's a fact. Fact is, he's also going to be a tactic champion for the upcoming saga, so he will have increased relevance for upcoming 3 months in the game, for sure. And in general, past that, he can also serve as a solid Battlegrounds defender. Now, whether he does or does not need to be awakened, I forgot to talk about Punisher 2099 there as well, but we will. So, in general, Man-Thing's actually very solid unawakened too. When he's awakened, him throwing special attacks will generate either Fury buffs or regeneration buffs. That can be helpful both offensively and defensively, because if you do have Fury buffs on, your poisons are going to tick for more, and obviously regen is just going to stretch out the fight. At the same time, there will be times when this is ineffective or even hindersome. Because if your opponent is using some Mystic Champions against Man-Thing, the fact that you're generating more buffs will give them more power due to MD, and that could make the fight easier for specific Mystic Champions to begin with. And then obviously if you're using Science Champion against the Man-Thing and you do have some Petrify effects and Regen Reversal, that again can make the fight easier. So he is, in my opinion, perfectly usable, especially as Defender Unawakened. If you do want to get any offensive use out of Man-Thing, then yeah, you do want him awakened, and ideally as high sig as possible, because there at higher sigs the difference is, somewhat noticeable. It is about 30% fury that you will pretty much have on at all times, 30% more poison damage, 30% harder hits, and so on and so forth. So, but let's not kid ourselves. 99 out of 100 fights, Man-Thing sits on defense, and he's perfectly capable of doing that unawakened. So, for my selector, I will be picking up Man-Thing. Then we have Venompool. A lot of people do like Venompool. I think he's fine. I think Venom is better for everything that we need in the game right now. Obviously, Venompool does have some advantages against robot matchups where he can switch up to Degeneration effect rather than relying on Bleed. He has a bit different buffs, and he's more ramp-uppy. His regen's arguably more potent as well. So, when it comes to Venompool, with Venom Relic, I have heard he does quite decently. But again, would I need to pick? I would be much more interested in Venom because he has much faster ramp-up and is faster in general. Venompool is more of a questing and long-form content champion, I would say. But again, overall, I prefer Venom. I don't think Venompool necessarily has to be awakened. It's neat, but I think unawakened Venompool works just about fine. When it comes to Punisher 2099, his awakened ability does help quite a bit. So I know a lot of you have the situation where you, let's say, how Man-Thing, and you think which you want to pick. I'd pick Punisher 2099, just have that new champion, because eventually, these champions will be available by other means. It's much better to have the champion the first time around, if that's ultimately the choice. If you have both of these champions, however, Punisher 2099 and Man-Thing, who I believe are two of the best competitive picks. But now we're specifically going to be talking about a situation where if you have Punisher 2099, if you have Man-Thing, both of them unawakened, I'd pick Punisher 2099 awakened ability because that is more significant than Man-Thing's is, because starting with 25% charge in his battery just means faster ramp up, which quite literally means you access your big damage faster, and that's super important for Punisher. He is obviously viable and usable unawakened, but he's going to be slower. As long as he's at least Sig 1, you're good. Also, when opponent hits 3 bars of power, you can drain 40% battery to power lock them and power drain them a little bit. Can save you at times as well, but it's mainly the faster start, the faster ramp up. So in a situation, again, where you have both Punisher 2099 and Man-Thing, awakened ability on Punisher 2099 is way more important, but I'd still pick either one of those two champions. Situation like myself, where I have seemingly shot and dotted around everywhere except for Punisher 2099 and Man-Thing, I would be picking up Man-Thing. That is my selector choice. Same if you have Punisher 2099 and don't have Man-Thing, I'd select Man-Thing. And if you have Man-Thing and don't have Punisher 2099, I'd select Punisher 2099. So those are my thoughts on the best options in several different scenarios. Obviously, each and every single one of us sees the game differently, and the point of this video is not to present myself as like the ultimate authority of anything, really. It's just to give my thoughts and expression, my thoughts of what I would do, because that typically is what I get asked. Who do you think is the best choice? What will you pick? So I have tried to answer those questions the best I can. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the next